Well, good morning. It's July the 1st, 2026. This is the Utah Safety Council Start with Safety. So I wanted to, first of all, say Happy New Year to all the accountants and bookkeepers and auditors and CFOs, because July 1st marks the new fiscal year. So we are excited at the Utah Safety Council. We operate on a fiscal year. So the upcoming new year, we have recommitted to finishing up our new website project. So that should launch sometime between now and the end of the calendar year in December. And we've been working on that and excited to show that off here soon. We are working on evolving the new member benefits. You know, these are things that the member companies can take advantage of with their membership with the Utah Safety Council in conjunction with the National Safety Council. We're also working hard to optimize our partnerships with ROMCO and the National Safety Council and the Utah Departments of Public Safety and Highway Safety Office. And then we are also upping our game when it comes to providing all our trainings in Spanish and just support the Spanish speaking community. So we are excited about those things. And then we are also getting more involved in to help advance the careers of safety professionals, especially women in safety. So if you don't know more about women in safety, please come and ask. We have a whole new programming evolving around that. So, but in July, we are closed on July the 3rd in a couple of days as we celebrate America's 250th birthday. So happy 4th of July to everybody. Please be safe. You know, don't burn us down if you are using fireworks. So I think we'd all appreciate that. We'll also be closed Friday, the 24th of July in celebration of Pioneer Day here in Utah. Before Pioneer Day, we have our annual meeting coming up, and those nominations, those safety award nominations, where we recognize the achievements of organizations and individuals for their achievements in safety throughout the year. Those nominations are due to us by July the 23rd. That's a Thursday. And then we're off on Friday, July the 24th. Speaking of our annual meeting, that is going to happen on September the 24th. That is a Thursday. It'll be in West Jordan this year at the Viridian Event Center. So we're excited for that. We're going to set up and provide lunch for 450 of our favorite member companies and potential award winners. So we'll have registration open for that very soon, and we'll hope to see you on September the 24th. Not sooner. Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce and bring up Karen Kittiona. She's our program manager. She manages all things workplace safety here, and she's going to kick off our Start with Safety, introduce our speaker, and get us going in the new July fiscal year. So, is that it? I'm done. Karen.
Good morning, good people of Utah. How are you today? Thank you for joining us here at our Start with Safety. First on our agenda, we would like to remind all of our member companies about our annual meeting, as John touched base on shortly. It will be held on July 23rd this year at the Viridian Event Center in West Jordan. So if you haven't submitted your OSHA logs or your nominations, please do so there's the QR code there, or you can head on over to our website, www.utahsafetycouncil.org, and you will see the nomination applications. Please partake of that important event. Also, we have on our calendar July 9th to the 10th from 8 to 1 p.m. right here at our location will be our mental health first aid course by none other than our certified instructor, Scott Martin. So again, head on over to our website or click on this QR code to register and partake of this very important course. It's a plus for you. Bring the team while you can. Okay, in other news, in my world of occupational workplace, we have funding that's available for the rest of, I know my boss mentioned that today is the new year, the kickoff of the new year, meaning fiscal year, right? But my workplace scholarship works on a calendar year. So guess what? We have 2 more quarters left in the year. that's quarter 3 and the last quarter, but we want to exhaust all of this money before quarter 4. Our goal is to get more money from the Utah Labor Commission by October, right? So what you want to do is for those companies that are already members with Utah Safety Council, or you have 250 and less employees and you want to join the Utah Safety Council, please hop on that wagon, sign on, register for Utah Safety Council to become a member, and then you are eligible to apply for workplace scholarship program. What that looks like in an example is if you have 75 employees, right? And you need logout, tagout training, confined space, or forklift. So you call up Karen, 801-746-SAFE, extension 304, and say, Karen, I want to use, tell me more about the workplace scholarship. I will talk to you about it, have you fill out the simplest application there is, and then we bring it in, we process it. And so if, for example, your training comes out to like 1,500, then this scholarship is up to 50%, depending on, you know, how many employees you have, if you're new, how long you've been out there in the industry kind of thing. We're very generous. So we give you, let's say 50%. So what is 50% of 1,500? You end up paying like something like close to 750, right? So it's reduction to the cost of your training. At the same time, the drive is you're saving the lives of the people who do the work for your company at a very affordable cost. So it pays for itself. Not only it pays for itself with scholarship, we also have membership. If you become a member with us, it'll pay for itself. Like we have a lot of member benefits that you are qualified for. Okay. So yeah, and being members and qualifying for benefits, some of them is in the duration of your annual membership, you are entitled to free classes, things like occupational safety essential. It's a must. You have got to attend all of these free classes, right? Now, you can send one person to attend that, first aid CPR, or OSHA 10, which will then upgrade pretty soon to OSHA 101 or Introduction to OSHA. So what are the odds of having these benefits to yourself, right? While you are coming to attend the OSE, please bring 2 other people from your company at a very, again, low affordable cost to you, right? And we invite all of our member companies to come here to Utah Safety Council when we offer these classes. One is July 10th coming up. It's on our website. Go sign up. It doesn't mean you have to pay unless you're bringing a second, third, fourth person, right? Why not bring the whole team? We'll work the money part out after that, or apply the scholarship. And then July 7th, so we have 2 freebies that are going on in the month of July. And then in August, there will always be a free class every month, right? The idea is to bring you together to the tables of Utah Safety Council, where you will not just learn about these classes and the awesome instructors that present them, but more. We will sit down with you and say, like, okay, what do you need help with? How can we help you? All of that nice conversation, free food, free lunch, right? We'll feed you when you come. So please make use of your benefits with Utah Safety Council. So next. And so having said that, some of our companies who have utilized their member benefits, right, this year, we would like to shout out to them. Why? Because you know what they say, prepared today, protected tomorrow, right? So we want to shout out to Enbridge Company and Salt Lake Public Utilities for partnering with Utah Safety Council as members in utilizing our emergency care program throughout this whole year with first aid, CPR, and AD. We have trained their employees through that partnership. And so it's what better way to protect your employees and prepare them for workplace safety, right? So shout out to Enbridge and Public Utilities, Salt Lake Public Utilities. How about a hand for them? And then we come to our speaker for today, Mr. Andrew McCormick. Andrew McCormick is the public education coordinator for Utah State Fire Marshal Office. In his position, he supports the efforts of Utah's firefighters by providing data and research analysis on fire incidents around the state, curriculum and materials to be used in educational settings, and best practices in fire safety education. He coordinates the state's efforts in reducing youth fire setting and is the state representative in the NFPA Association. Andrew has a master's of public administration that partially emphasizes public education and safety. Please welcome, put your hands together and welcome our speaker for today. I'll turn over to Andrew.
Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm going to get my screen set up and we'll go from there. Give me one sec. We'll make sure we're on the right setting here. Okay, let's see. I can't see anybody anymore, but maybe a little audio. You can tell me if you can see my screen okay. While I get back to the first slide.
Looking good, sir.
Thanks so much. Okay, we started at the bottom there. I'm so happy to be here, you guys. Thank you. I think the last time I did this presentation was with you guys. And then we've had some adaptations, especially, you might imagine, in the last few weeks, and with the governor's announcement and cities and municipalities scrambling. So I'd like to talk about a few things, some outdoor recreation, fire safety, firework safety, and missing from my main slide here is I thought I would add a little bit on lithium-ion battery safety, as that's becoming more and more of a safety issue around the country and around our state. Let's get going, and I can take questions at the end if we want to, or otherwise I'll just proceed. I've got kind of a funny camera setup, so I hope this works okay. I get so much glare from the sun that I had to switch, and so I have to make sure to look. My presentation's over here, and you guys are over here, so I'll make sure I look at you. First off, let's talk about what kind of fire safety we want to talk about today. A little bit of outdoor recreation stuff. That's not a huge focus for what our office does. But I think it's pretty important in the summer months when we're recreating so much and so much of our beautiful state is utilized. I'm a big outdoor guy, especially in the winter, where there's not so much of a skiing fire issue, but there is in the summer. And when we're out there, we just want to make sure that we're very carefully recreating, especially this year. We'll talk a little bit about home fire safety. It's kind of major causes around the house. That is an area where our office really focuses on education and trying to make sure people are aware of common causes of fire around the house and things they can do to be a little safer. We'll talk about fireworks for a minute. It's a weird year, but we'll make sure we go over some safety stuff. And then we'll talk about lithium-ion batteries. Just quick note, and thanks so much for that introduction about me. I'm recently, last year, I think probably not doing this last year, I've been promoted to be the PIO, the Public Information Officer, which means I do a few more of these, and also means I take the first call when KUTV or KSL calls. Like 90% of the time, I'm just telling them to go talk to the fire marshal, making sure he's available. He's a much better speaker than I am. But that's kind of a fun role and adds a little bit of spice to my daily operations. Before I was here, I've been here about 10 years. Before I was here, I was with Salt Lake City doing community education programs. So our office, if you don't know about the State Fire Marshal's office, we do a lot. We're not just telling people there's too many people in a room or the concert's too loud. We're doing plan reviews for buildings, specifically state buildings, so schools, hospitals, things like that. We have an arson investigation wing. We have 7 arson investigators in the office. We've just recruited and hired a new arson investigating dog. Pretty amazing. Their sense of smell is better than technology. We have some sweep roller things that go through a crime scene, and they're pretty good, but a dog can smell 1 drop of accelerant per 30,000. Pretty amazing. Let's see, licensing and testing. So liquid petroleum gas, fireworks, fire extinguishers, fire safety systems, anything that has to do with preventing fires, we're on the side of that. We also have a small hazmat response team, although their emphasis is mostly training. They're experts in the field. They go around the nation teaching this kind of stuff. And there's my section there, policy analysis and public education. And so we try to get messages out. A lot of that is online these days. We try to get positive stories out about fire safety on social media, make sure our website is up to date so people have resources. As mentioned earlier, we spend a lot of time supporting the efforts of fire departments who are in their communities and know their communities, but maybe need a hand with specific curriculum or specific social media outreach stuff. One example of that is, or one, I think an important note on that, if you didn't know, is that 80% of Utah fire departments are volunteer based. That doesn't mean, that means they don't have a lot of funding, right? That means they might not have the $1,000 they need to print some flyers or to push a Facebook post or something. So we try to help that with that. We have stout state funding, and we're pretty strong in that direction. We are in some ways a little antiquated. Most states have more than one public education coordinator, even a small state like Utah. And so we're looking at growth and looking at ways we can be impactful and grow that impact. But so much of what we do is through partnerships and working with groups like you guys and groups like, direct fire departments or sometimes schools or religious organizations we partner with a lot to get messaging out. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into why we even care about fire safety, right? My data is a tiny bit old here, capped out at 2020. We did see some interesting trends through COVID that we're still kind of parsing out a little bit. The trend was still upward, but we saw some dips. So you can see at the end of my slide there, it ends at 2020. What we would have seen there is it start to dip in 2021 and then 2022 even, and then it's crawling back up. It's following this sort of upward trend. But for these years, for 2011 to 2020, we see a somewhat steady growth. If you're looking at the numbers, right? 2021, we had 160,000, this is nationwide, by the way, cooking fires. And by 10 years later, we had 30,000 more. It's a pretty good increase, right? Same goes for other kind of fires. Again, we'll talk about wildfires a little bit, but that is not so much the scope of our office. So those numbers have obviously increased exponentially in the last 15 years. We're going to talk about each of these a little bit, but I'd like you to just kind of take note of the four we're looking at. We're looking at cooking, heating, that could be space heaters, that could be home fires, and then unintentional or careless fires. That's kind of a growing one, actually. And then electrical malfunction. Now, for this report, that does not include lithium-ion batteries. The data on that is actually kind of hard to track because they're new, and there hasn't been a line item for them in our data. There is now starting in 2024, and so we'll have some data on that soon, and we're seeing the trends are pretty clear on that. But
Hey, Andrew.
so this is kind of, yeah.
It looks like you're sharing the notes page of your presentation, so we're seeing
Oh boy,
the data a little small.
you are seeing a little small. Let's see how to adjust that. Give me 1 second. Okay, did that change at all?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we got it. Okay, thanks everybody. I appreciate that. It's sort of without seeing any faces in the room, I'm sort of talking into the void. And now I can't even see me. So I hope I continue to look forward. Okay, let's make sure it goes forward. Yeah, great. Okay, maybe. Okay. Well, so that data is the same as the last one. Let me just go back real quick. This one's a little more clear. And then I just made the classic presentation mistake of using a pencil to point at the screen so you guys could see me. But look at that number of cooking fires in 2026. And underneath that, we have heating fires and unintentional. Overall trends below that, what's interesting is the increase and the decrease in residential heating. There's just less people using wood and pellets and things to heat fires or to heat the home. But we're seeing a pretty steady increase. That 30% increase on residential unintentional fires is pretty interesting, right? That could be a candle left unattended. That could be batteries overcharging, that could be, well, probably not space heaters, that would fall under electrical. But we're seeing a lot more of just kind of carelessness around the house, whether it's in the kitchen or just the rest of the house. Just a few years ago, we had an unintended candle start an entire house fire in West Valley. Frustrating. We'll skip the video part of this, but we've had a handful of these locally and close to home. And so this is important and worth talking about. We'll talk about how to be safe with candles in a second. You know, the numbers are real, right? We're seeing almost 30,000 fires, 500 or so deaths. That's gone up quite a bit. The last number I looked at for 2024 was 2,300 deaths nationwide. Billions of dollars of damage and property loss, and that doesn't include wildfires and that kind of stuff. So it's important that we talk about this. Here's a quick snippet, and I apologize, that is a little small. I should have done this in 2 slides, but that pie chart on the right calls out what incident types we're seeing in Utah, and this is for, where's the date on this, 2020. So you can imagine the red there is EMS calls. Over about 60% of calls for Utah fire is EMS. That makes sense, and that's, you know, nationwide. Few false alarms, 8% false alarms. Only about 5-6% is fires. So Utah is actually on a national level pretty safe overall. We have plenty of fires, but we're pretty smart about it. We are seeing trends go up. So over on the left there, the NFIRS data, that's just a national fire incident reporting system, and you can see the national average and the number of deaths. You know, the goal would be 0. The technology we have and the information we have, we shouldn't be having these fire deaths. I like this graphic. I like that it points out that if I was in the room with you, I'd make you yell it out, right? But the number one we're seeing is cooking fires, right? Almost half fires in the house are started in the kitchen. That makes sense for where our heat and electricity and materials for fire are. A call out there that might be hard to see, but just at 42% cooking, about at 10 o'clock from there is 62% of house fires occur in homes without working smoke alarms, smoke detectors. It's kind of amazing how many houses, especially in Utah, don't have a functioning fire alarm system or a smoke detector, even in the kitchen. And we've all been there. We've all burnt popcorn, and then that thing goes off, and then we just reach up and take the battery out, and 6 months later we haven't put it back in. But reduction in both fire damage and injuries and deaths is staggering how quickly it can change with just working smoke detectors. Also worth noting here is that arson is actually pretty high, 17% of arson. That's why we have an arson investigation team. But there are a fair amount of fires caused by arson. I think it's worth pointing out that 0.02 children playing with fires, even though we have a juvenile or youth fire setter prevention program, and see these occasionally. A lot of those are like catching the leaves on fire by the garage, or something at school where they took a lighter to school and they're lighting a paper towel on fire, and it's not doing a lot of damage or even setting off the fire alarm. But then electrical's popping up here, and so is heating. So those are kind of interesting how those stand out. So what can we do? These are the quick tips from the fire marshal and from our office, but pretty straightforward, right? Anytime we're using fire, we should be watching it, right? If we have a candle going, if we have something cooking on the stove, if we've started incense, if we've started the barbecue, walking away from it's the biggest mistake we make. I think it's worth noting that we went on a fire about 18 months ago where the woman had caught her cooking book their cookbook on fire next to the stove, walked away, left. It was kind of a cluttered house, and that went up pretty fast, right? All that material doesn't take too much. But an uncluttered, clean house with easy access to every room are less likely to catch fire. You could picture a candle tipping over, but if there's nothing for it to ignite, there's no loose paper, no garbage, whatever, it's going to probably spread a lot less quickly. So that's just a great tip for you guys and for anybody wanting to keep their house a little clean. We kind of talked about number 3 there. We just keep it simple. No need to hammer on each of these, but the 3-foot rule works great. Fireplaces, anything flammable, anything, any material that could light up, keep it away from those space heaters. Keep those space heaters 3 feet back from the bed, from the couch where you're sitting. Same with a candle. It's really tempting to want to put candles, throughout a room or on different surfaces or different heights of surfaces. But keeping away from other materials is the key. I have a 17-year-old daughter who's a big fan of kind of all things sort of cute, and that means wall decorations and posters and of course candles. And I don't think she likes me having to come in there and go, you got to move that away from that curtain's way too flammable. Or like a kind of a triple curtain kind of situation where there's like the actual blackout curtain and then some flimsy ones. Those are just kind of begging for a candle to come by. And we talked about this a second ago, but please make sure that smoke detector is working. Check them every 6 months, replace the battery, and every 10 years, replace the whole thing. The way those are made with the plastics and things is they'll just fail after 10 years. And if you replace one in the house and they're connected, just replace them all. That's not too big of a cost to incur every year, but we'd ask that you do that. That is the safest way. It's probably the number 1 piece of advice our office gives out is make sure your smoke detectors are working. Picture any of these other things. Well, if you're not aware that the fire's going, they're not noisy, they don't sound like much. And so you're going to smell that smoke first, but that smoke detector is going to pick it up instantly. Keep an extinguisher on every level. These can be found at Home Depot or Lowe's or anywhere else, but keep one on every level of your house and know where it is. Mount it where it's easy to get to and at a height that's easy to get to. I don't like putting them on the floor. First, they can get knocked over, and then second, it's a little harder to get to, right? Reach down and grab it and remember how to use it. Our office does offer fire extinguisher training. We mostly offer it for like business level or office level stuff. We want to, kind of catch as many people as you can, but we have simulated fire extinguisher props that simulate fire, and then you practice the motion for that. That's kind of into the weeds a little bit for this presentation, but it's worth noting that we do that, and I'd recommend for anybody to at least look up some videos on how to actually use a fire extinguisher. But again, one on every level of the house. And easy to get to. They can be on a closet, they can be in a shelf, but between 3 and 5 feet high is kind of the window. And then just check them once a year, make sure they're working or that the windows still got pressure. There's nothing in the way of them, no clutter, no dust, whatever. Lastly, and this is one I talk about with the youth a lot, but we want to create an escape plan if there is a fire with the whole family, and then practice it. So it's easy to say, okay, get out of the house. If you can't get out your door, go out the window. If you can't get out the window, yell for help. But actually practicing it makes a huge difference for both feeling safe and noticing when something happens, what to do. A note of that is that you need to have a spot where you all meet, because you're probably not going to all go out the same way or together. So pick a neighborhood location, your neighbor's tree or the mailbox or something away from the house where you can all meet and know where to get to, and practice that part too. And if you have young kids, it's always kind of a fun little, Saturday adventure. Make it something more interesting than just a really scary fire's coming and we're gonna hide from it. So we did this a lot when my kids were smaller. We just do it once a year, but it's worth doing, right? Make that escape plan and then practice. Well, let's just talk a little bit about outdoor fire. So that was household fire, and we can talk more. Or if you have any questions, you can always go to the website or email or call me. I'd be happy to talk more. I grabbed this graphic on the right there off of forestry fire and state lands yesterday. And I'm assuming most of you are aware of the new fire restrictions. And these do depend now. We had some clarity. We had a KUTV out here this morning talking to the fire marshal. A little clarity on who can enforce what and when. But as you can see on that map, 95% of the state is red and is restricting fire use, including fireworks. A few of these places are okay with this. I was up American Fork Canyon on the weekend and they were at level 2, which meant we could have a fire in the fire pit as long as we were careful. And then there's a water source nearby, running water. The river didn't count. And so just remember a few of these fire restrictions. Please check before you're planning to recreate in the outdoors this summer. Please check with the local fire service. You can go right here to Utah Fire Info. If you just Google that, this page will come up. That's kind of an odd web page, but it'll pop right up. And then you can look at these maps and zoom in and see what's available and what isn't. As you can see, maybe it's a little unclear, but that maroon is the stage 2 fire restrictions. And they are pretty much everywhere. If you can't find it easily, feel free to call me, but it should be out there. Let's see, I think my next slide. Yeah, okay. So again, I added this all in because these are sort of changing daily. And that is pretty tiny, but this is our fire works restrictions. And the whole state is red. So after the governor's executive order, cities and this, sorry, one step backward. So this is a state website, so it's following the governor's restriction orders for specific changes to that. For example, Cedar City's doing a very small area in the middle of the city that's okay to do fireworks. You'll have to go directly to the city or municipality's website, and that's a great way to do that. They know pretty well what's going on, and they're coordinating this weekend very carefully with forestry fire lands and making sure this is all as safe as possible. But this is a great resource. And like I said, I stopped in American Fork Canyon. I stopped at the ranger station, just double checked, and they're perfectly happy to talk about that, right? We won't get into sort of some of the other issues here, but we'll talk about fireworks because they still can be used in some places. Let me just do a little skipping. Well, we'll go in order. Okay, so just remember this resource is out there. They're updating this probably hourly. We have a website with local fire restrictions, but it's only when municipalities and cities send us stuff. So if we don't get it right away, we're not as up to date as these guys who are kind of doing this constantly. So I was asked to talk a little bit about why this is happening, why the extra precautions this year. You may have noticed over the winter we had not much snow, not much moisture. That was one of the driest, greenest Christmases I've ever had. And ironically, a decent ski year, just not much snowpack. So we're way down on the average, and then it didn't get much wetter in the spring, which meant things dried up and are kind of staying dry. We've had a little moisture in the last week, but it is literally a drop in the bucket. We've had some wet years in the past and dry years in the past, but this is a particularly dry year. You can kind of tell, maybe if you've watched the news or watching, these interviews with fire service personnel, you can tell by their tone that they're nervous about this, July through October, the fire season. And with some casualties out in Colorado, Utah border, we're mindful of the weight we're putting on our firefighters. Okay. Yeah, mountain forest areas are particularly dry, and we're a little worried about that. And then, boy, this really exploded. So 2 weekends ago, I was coming back from Las Vegas from a conference, And I passed basically every fire on the I-15 corridor, and they're huge. You know, the last really big one we had was 2016, I believe. And it was something like 80,000 acres, and we're already at like 120,000 acres. And that is multiple fires. So, you know, the math's a little different, but I think it's just really important to note that we've already had a lot of fires. They're already pretty severe, and most of them are human caused. And fireworks are no exception for that. We don't have any notes of whether fireworks have started the last few fires, probably not. But last year, I think when I presented this, and then 2 weeks later, we had a Lehigh fire and a Saratoga Springs fire, both firework related. You know, there's two things to keep in mind besides wildfires, is injuries, deaths, and property damage. None of us wants to burn down a carport or even a garbage can, or have an injury from a firework. So this is downloadable. This is one of my favorite ones, and we have it on the website. If you want it, you can come grab it from me, or I'll email it to you. But some notable things is how high injuries skyrocket on July 4th, and for us, July 24th. And there's on average 6 to 10 deaths from fireworks a year. That's 6 to 10 too many for a celebration, or what's supposed to be, but it's significant, and it's something that we need to be mindful of and careful of. They're loud, they're hot, they have the potential to injure us. They have the potential to start fires, and we need to be careful. I like this graphic. This is from the NFPA, National Fire Prevention Association. It looks like you can probably see it pretty quickly. Top place we're injured with fireworks is, of course, our hands or fingers, right? Lighting that fuse, not backing away fast enough, fuse burns too fast, holding it. So many of these come from messing around. I don't know what it is about fireworks that's like, they're fun, they're bright. I want to be closer to it. I want to hold it. I want to hold that bottle rocket a little bit longer, the Roman candle. Well, that's where those injuries come from, right? It makes sense that eyes are also injured, and of course legs. I think it's worth pointing out a few things. The average age of an injury victim is between 25 and 44, or the highest, I should say, the highest injury. Below that is the most common is 10 to 14, and I think that's noticing your kids are a little more responsible, giving them a chance to light things, and then not supervising them, or not. Or if something goes wrong, or they don't quite know what they're doing. So that's a number that should definitely be lower. I would guess that number is trending upward just by the number of things we're seeing. That's worth noting, and then it's sad and frustrating that anyone between 0 and 4 would be injured by a firework. That just speaks to me of carelessness, having a kid wander too close to a fountain, or giving them a sparkler at a young age, and all sorts of things, right? Probably comes as no surprise that a little over half of injuries are male. I think that just tracks with behavior. You could look at this another way, and you could say between 19 and 0, about a third are injuries, right? The other third is 25 to 44, and then a few in between. But kids are injured a lot by fireworks. I'll just tell a short story. I think we have time. 2 years ago, I was at a neighborhood party. It was kind of sponsored by a lot of different families, and it was fun and chaotic. But when it came to fireworks, the men in the group just couldn't quite decide who should light them, and maybe a 15-year-old kid should be given a chance anyway. There was a failure of a aerial. It was the kind that had like 8x8 and would pop up, every 2 or 3 seconds. One of them shot out the side directly into the crowd. I don't know how fast those go, but pretty quickly, and hit a young girl in the stomach, burned through her shirt, dropped, burned onto her pants. good news was I was there with a fire extinguisher and quite a bit of water, and so we dumped a bucket of ice water on her and got to the burn pretty quickly. But imagine a party not going well and pretty much ending, at 9:45 because this poor young girl got injured. There were no fires. That was the only injury, but it was terrifying, and it's nice to have a personal story for these numbers, but also terrifying for those families. So we've gone over these. This is my old slide from last year. So check your local restrictions, please. This is all over the news and should be pretty easy to find. Our website has it, but your locals will probably have the most up to date. Few cities just haven't quite decided. I think as of yesterday, we're still waiting on a few to give us a decision on what they wanted to do. I bet by noon today we've got everybody in. But before you're even thinking about lighting fireworks this season, please check first if it's allowed. I'll just add a note just from the gossip that I'm hearing, which is that police are doubling, tripling patrols. They really don't want to have to be the bad guys about this, but on the other hand, we can't afford fires breaking out in the state. Make sure they're legal when you do buy them. I like this prep the area one. That one's so important, right? Do this in a clear, flat area. Check for dry brush around your homes and vehicles. Keep water nearby. Like I said about my story a couple of years ago, we just had the hose nearby, and there was buckets and coolers and things for drinks, and so there was plenty of water and ice nearby. And then have the adults do it. Fire them off one at a time. Don't relight duds. Wait 20 minutes and drop them directly into water. Don't aim them at people. I'm surprised I have to put that on there. Don't throw them. Use them as intended. Put them on the ground, light them and back away. Submerge them, get rid of them. That way, big bucket, 5-gallon bucket's all you need, hopefully. Metal tin works great for that, not plastic. And then I would just check on them a few times and just make sure nothing's smoldering and nothing got spilled out the side or something. Pretty straightforward. And this year's a little different because probably we won't be doing these, but those are the rules. So enough about fireworks. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about lithium-ion batteries. We still have a few more minutes. This has come up on a national level because not only do I sit on the board of the NFPA, the National Fire Prevention Association, but also we're starting to see these in Utah more and more. I wish I had better graphics for you, but in a couple years ago, I want to say 2023, 24, there was a Brooklyn apartment fire caused by an e-bike battery overloading. It was near other e-bikes, and so after it got real hot, those batteries got hot. There were a bunch of other issues with this fire in this apartment building, but there was some loss of life and a lot of damage. In a dense populated area like that, in a building where we're storing these big batteries inside, you can see where those factors make a bigger difference for safety. We're not seeing deaths in Utah by lithium-ion batteries yet. And without being pessimistic, I think we will. The way these things are ubiquitous, they are everywhere. I mean, I'm looking at my desk right now. I've got my headphones. I've got 2 phones. I've got flashlight. I've got a charger. These are all lithium-ion battery. I guess I got 2 laptops. So I'm chock full of lithium-ion batteries. Now, they don't fail that often, right? Or we'd be talking about this every day. But they fail enough, or they cause fires enough, that they are on the list of big things we need to be talking about. And we're using them more and more. And we're using them in bigger applications, right? My lawnmower is electric, which I love. I think it's great, super quiet. But that's a big battery. E-bikes, scooters, skateboards. These things can go 20 miles an hour. That takes a lot of energy, and that is stored in a pretty small space. So we've had a lot of these fires. Gosh, I thought I had one. But there was a great one. You probably look it up on YouTube. But the family had it's in South Jordan, and it was last year. But the family had cameras, and one of their bikes in the garage lit up. and the smoke starts coming through the kitchen, and there's a camera in the kitchen. And so seeing how quickly that fire spreads, because that is a hot fire coming from a lithium ion battery. You can see here that it sparks real hot, real fast, 1,000 degrees in seconds, and that will ignite drywall. That'll ignite things around it. And they're difficult to put out. It just wants to keep burning. You know, it's this packed little energy that's layered. The batteries are sort of this layer on a layer, and so they light up and they want to keep burning. We're seeing this on small devices. We're seeing old phones pop up or pop off. We're seeing specifically like unregulated items. Actually, a culprit is the rechargeable battery packs. If they're not UL certified, then we probably shouldn't be using them. The same for vapes. They just are not well made and go off. Years ago, this is like 2018, we had one of those go off in a student's pocket at a high school nearby, and you know, give him a really good burn before he could get that out of his pocket. And luckily, nothing else ignited. I'm trying my very best not to read to you from my slides, so you can check those other issues here while I've been talking. But you know, I hope this point is clear that these batteries are everywhere, and there's bigger ones and smaller ones. And here's our data from 2016 to 2022. This is just statewide. This is, again, is a little tricky for us to track because there was no line item, and so we had to go back in and look at reports that said specifically a battery exploded or had issues. But we're seeing them here. And you can see those numbers. In 2016, we saw 40 that were reported. Now, remember, the reporting system was a little off. I would say it was probably at least triple, maybe 5 times these numbers, just based on the fact that the reporting is a little wonky. But you know, as we see this further, we'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll add 2023 and so forth. And we're going to see this giant upward trend, right? In 6 years here, it's more than tripling. That's a very significant amount of fires from lithium ion batteries. So here's your fire marshal's quick tips. Don't use them if you see any damage. If they're bulging, if they're dented, if they got wet, stop using that item. And it's time to get a new one. If you smell anything, if there's the plastic around it has changed colors. I did have a laptop, actually a personal laptop, separate because the battery had bulged and the casing had separated. If you see something like that, stop using that item. If it's a laptop, you know, back up that data and move on. You can contact the fire department for questions with this. You can have Salt Lake Fire, Provo Fire, Logan Fire come out and just check it really quick. They love doing that stuff. And they'd rather prevent a fire, right, than come and fight it. For your charging, so this is interesting. On a national level, the NFPA is only going to talk. They pick a theme every year, and this theme they picked that they're only going to talk about is how to correctly charge. So here's your tips on charging correctly. But try to use the original charger, if not the same brand, right? If you got your iPhone, try to grab an iPhone charger for it. Those are pretty ubiquitous and not seeing too many issues. And Apple's not having a ton of issues with phones blowing up, but when you're charging, make sure try your best to make sure you're using the right cord. Flat surfaces make a difference, and try not to do it on like a couch or your bed or something like that. Let it charge on the nightstand, let it charge on somewhere less likely to ignite. And then unplug them when they're done. And I'm not great at this with some things. The lawnmower, you know, I finish mowing the lawn, I drop that into the charger, and then a day later I go, oh yeah, that's done. Or cameras are that way, right? Where you just kind of leave them plugged in until you know. We need to move away from doing that. We're seeing that the trickle, once they're full, the trickle charge is pushing them over 100% and causing problems. So just unplug it. Just walk by, unplug it, let it sit there. Store them in regular climate. So for us in Utah, that just means, don't store these outside. If it gets to August and we're over 104, then we have a problem. Bring them inside in the winter. I do that with the lawnmower, and it also helps the battery live longer. For anything that does charge, make sure there is a way to get that out of the house or get you out of the house easily, right? We don't want clutter nearby, just like we talked about earlier. We don't want ignitables anywhere near this stuff. Yeah, I've kind of covered all of these. Let's see, certified equipment, right? And you can always go on to UL and check, if you're unsure of an item. I was at this conference, right? And the main topic was how to charge and lithium-ion batteries. We had wildfire talk, we had other talks, but they're handing out gift items that included kind of crappy, no-name flashlights, rechargeable. And then they handed out a battery pack, not this one, but a different one. And the irony was not lost on any firefighter there. I'm like, why are I don't need a free gift. Hey, well, yes, I do need a free gift, but I don't need a, junky, poorly made one, especially if it could cause a fire. The other thing I think worth touching on is some of these batteries on these bikes and skateboards and scooters can be overrun and get a little more juice out of them, and they might be a little more powerful. Please don't do that. Don't mess with them. Don't even try to take the casing off. There's no extra 2 mile an hour that's going to be worth having a battery in your garage that could explode at any minute. Guys, that's everything I have. I know I have a tendency to speak kind of quickly, and it's always a little funny not seeing any faces and hoping I'm not boring you to death, but I'm open to questions. We have a few minutes. Is there anything else we can talk about?
John has a question for you. Andrew, what are the consequences if, someone drives out of state, buys aerial fireworks, and then they don't necessarily start a fire, but they're lighting them off in a neighborhood or a park, and there's cops.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the exact punitive consequence. I know that for regular fireworks right now, it might depend on the municipality, but the scuttlebutt we've heard is that everyone's going to be charged with the highest charge they can get, $1,000 or more, and possible jail time. And that's just for the current restrictions. So if you're going to Evanston and getting, the big stuff this year, that's going to land you in some hot water.
Hey, Andrew, this is Brandon. I just wanted to say we really appreciate you doing this for us and supporting us. I have a question for you. Where could I go to find resources for making an escape plan?
That is a great question. There's three great choices for that. We have an okay one on our website under fire department resources. So if you go to Utah, let's see, firemarshal.utah.gov, and then dig around a little bit, we have an okay one. Your local department probably has one, and probably got it from me at some point. There's a map from the NFPA again. So it's just nfpa.org, National Fire Prevention Association. And then they have a search menu, and you can just say exit plan, or if you Google Edith, EDITH, that just is a national program also that helps you create a little escape plan, and you can make draw your house and make a little, there's 4 bedrooms on the main floor, 2 upstairs, and we're going to go down the stairs and go out this front door. You can make one there.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, fine question. Anybody else?
Well, I got one more for you. Are sparklers safe for kids?
Sparklers. I thought for a second I thought you said sprinklers, and I said, "Oh, sure, buddy, run through the sprinklers." Sparklers. So, I got interviewed about this like 2 weeks ago, and then we hit the executive order. But I mean, I'll give you my personal thing. No, they burn hotter than regular fireworks. They're shorter and closer. I would say anybody under 8 shouldn't be holding a firework or a sparkler. And I guess I'll caveat that by saying that's my personal opinion. When my kids, I have 4 kids, they're all almost adults now, but man, when they waved those things around when they were little, I was going to lose an eye, right? It's fun to watch it, but then it starts coming close to an adult's head. They're scary. They burn very hot. It's something like 1200 or 1200 degrees. That's hot enough to melt glass. And so when that drops on you or doesn't make it to the bucket, yeah, those are hot.
Wow.
I guess I have more of a comment than a question, but I guess I don't understand how we can say no fireworks, but then on every corner there's firework ban, fireworks for sale. What do we do? What do we do, Andrew?
Yeah, what do we do? Well, we like commerce, don't we? I think that's really, really tricky. And I, if we were having a couple of beers, I'd probably have a different opinion. But as is, I think it's hard timing, right? I think we love the 4th of July and our communities all love it. I love it. And 250 is a big deal. And so not celebrating with fireworks just feels hard. But I think it's a time when we defer to the experts.
I now play like a full vitamin October.
I have a question. This morning, I heard on the news that some of the cities have banned selling fireworks, right? So what happens if, I don't know, just I'm trying to word it where I can probably get some guidance from you. I live in Bountiful. What happens if there's a ban in Bountiful about fireworks, and I see my neighbor doing fireworks, so he must have got it from a city that's not, having a ban or something. Oh, would you guide me to the protocols, or do I have to go to the city to answer that question?
Yeah, well, 2 things. I haven't heard that. I haven't been watching the news too much today, prepping for this conversation. But so that's interesting that the cities are banning the sale altogether. That could lead to all sorts of issues. But also kind of tracks with why, if we're going to ban them altogether, why would we have them in the city at all? But yeah, that's the short answer is like I would check to see. I mean, there's going to be areas where fireworks are going, whether it's legally or not. And it's up to the cities and areas to take care of that. So.
Thank you.
Well, all right. Thank you, sir. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time, giving us some good information, especially in the hot summer months. To wrap this up, we will quickly just touch on our next Start with Safety, which is going to be on August 4th with the Mexican consulate talking about labor rights. So we hope to see you all there come next month. And then follow us on our social platforms. We put out some good information there as well as some updates that happen within the council. And with that, just stay safe out there.
Start with safety.